This is me in 2018, just arrived in Italy. No friends, barely any Italian and no place to live. And somehow here I am, 7 years later, built my entire life here. I got my master's degree, opened my business, got married and even started this YouTube channel. And I'll be honest, Italy has given me some of the best moments of my life. But last summer I hit the biggest crisis I ever had since moving here. The kind where you find yourself googling best countries to move to and start a new life in your 30s. And that made me realize there is a whole side of building your life abroad that no one really talks about, especially in Italy. So stay with me because I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened and how I feel about Italy now. Oh, and I forgot to introduce myself. Ciao, I'm Vlada, I'm 34 and I live in Milan, and this video will help you understand what it's actually like to build a long-term life in Italy. Fast forward to 2024 when everything started piling up. First, I was waiting for my long-term residence permit to be approved, and this took almost a year. And I couldn't leave the country in this period. I had to deal with endless visits to Questura, with zero clarity, sometimes rude stuff, and the usual paper mistake chaos. At the same time, I was self-employed, drowning in Italian bureaucracy, and on top of that, I was planning a wedding, which, if you are a foreigner in Italy, at least in our case, involves bringing every single document you've ever owned, and still being told this one is missing because your place of birth somehow is listed as Kiev, Russia in their system. By month 6 of all of this, I was emotionally done and I genuinely thought, what if we just leave? But to understand how I even got to this point, we need to rewind a bit. When I first came to Italy, it was honestly euphoric. Everything was new and beautiful. I was studying, eating all the carbs, traveling, making friends, until the pandemic hit. Italy had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world, so as many of us, I spent months in a small Milan apartment, even ended up graduating online, and had no idea when I will see my family. But then the things started getting better and the restrictions were lifted and I started to enjoy life outside again, until the started. I was born in Ukraine and my mom is Ukrainian, my dad is Russian, and this topic is very hard to talk about, so I'm not gonna enter it, but I will just say that I have the closest family in both countries, but I haven't been able to return to either since 2021. And that created a strange pressure. Italy had to feel like home, you know? And of course, with this came a lot of expectations. But even outside of that emotional pressure, daily life came with its own challenges. And especially when you are self-employed. I just have to say that being self-employed in Italy is complicated. As a new business, you pay less taxes in the regime forfettario, thanks God, but even issuing a simple invoice comes with a dozen extra steps. If your business grows or shifts slightly, you need to add an extra tax code, which means more money, more documents and more delays. And 100% you need a commercialista, and it's hard to find a good one. Also, they are expensive and sometimes even they are confused. And then there is loneliness. Most of my friends are also internationals and many of them have left because of low salaries or the same bureaucracy I'm talking about. At one point, I felt like I was constantly saying goodbye to people that I just started to love. But here's the thing. When you do find people who decide to stay and who also choose life here and who understands all the layers of what it means to build home far from home, these friendships go deep. They become your support system and your chosen family. The people I've met here, they are the city for me. They are what makes Milan feel like home. And while that community helps you keep going, there are still everyday things that slowly wear you down. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't think that it was obvious, but when you move countries, you kind of lose your health routines. Back home, you probably have a trusted doctor and a set of checkups you do regularly, but here you have to build it all from scratch. And the Italian health system, while technically great, moves like a snail. And to book an appointment with a specialist, you have to go to your medico di base and then they give you this direction. And up until recently, there was this thing that you had to call on the phone to book an appointment, and you had to read a 15-digit code saying things like M as in Milano, A as in Ancona, only to have them say then "Scusi, non ho capito" and start over again. It's draining, and so as many immigrants, you start postponing health checkups even when you shouldn't. Also, there are those little comforts you lose. Back home, I used to do regular haircuts, salon manicures, massages, all of this stuff. Here in Milan, it's quite expensive and not always better quality, so I do a lot of it home, and it's not a big tragedy. It's just those little things that when you think of that, you realize how much energy it takes to rebuild your life in a new country. And don't even make me started on unexpected ways of how Italy has changed me. Here people are very direct, sometimes openly confrontational. And you have to stand your ground and fight for your rights and raise your voice, literally. And I learned that sometimes here being nice and calm just doesn't work. At first it was exhausting. I used to avoid conflict by any means. Now I've learned to say no, to push back, to send this extra email with an attitude if needed. And I also learned that here sometimes crying or yelling actually get things done. It's not necessarily healthy, but it's just reality. One time I cried in an Anagrafe office, which is very unusual for me because I cannot cry on public. We came to this office to officialize the date of our marriage registration, and they kept sending us back for more documents. So at some point I just had a little meltdown, and guess what? This actually worked and our form got approved in 5 minutes. But while some things still drive me crazy, I've also become completely and utterly spoiled by beauty of it all. The architecture, the landscape, the food. Every weekend I try to remind myself, you live in Italy, go out and enjoy it. Take that train to the lake, grab that aperitivo, get lost in this little town you've never been before. I'm also very lucky. I live right in the city center of Milan and the beauty is literally outside my window. And you know what? It's easy to stop noticing and get used to it. So I make it a point to pause and really take it in. Because sometimes in the middle of all the stress and adulting and fighting systems, you forget what really brought you here at the first place. And I'm really grateful I live in such a beautiful country. But it's also true that when you live abroad, your expectations shift, and so do you. The truth is, every country has its own way and logic of how things are done. At first it's frustrating. Things that were easy back home suddenly take 3 phone calls and a mild breakdown here. Whether it's trying to get a plumber who promises to come and then completely ghosts you, or the restaurant that closes 30 minutes earlier than the posted time and acts like you are the crazy one. Those things are not huge, but they tend to accumulate and slowly wear you down. And the hardest part, you don't even know what's normal anymore. But with every year you start to get a bit more used to it and you stop expecting things to work as they were back home. You get better at reading hidden rules and eventually you grow. You become more adaptable, more patient and honestly quicker on your feet. And Italy just makes you more flexible. So after all this, I asked myself, was it really worth it to move to Italy? And here is the answer. And if you've ever lived abroad long enough, you've probably already know this. You become a new version of yourself. Italy has definitely changed me, but it also taught me how to build new life from scratch, to be stronger, to speak up for myself, and maybe most importantly, it reminded me that beautiful places are not always the easy ones. And that's okay. I've made my peace with that and I know all the pros and cons of this country and I still choose to stay here and continue building my life in Italy. Please let me know in the comments if you ever moved countries, what was the hardest thing to adjust to? Or if you are dreaming of moving to Italy, what would you like to know more about? And if you enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Like, subscribe and see you in the next one. Ciao!